the door that changed everything, expanded. Isabella had always believed life was like a canvas. The more control you had over each stroke, the clearer the final picture would be. Her days followed a rhythm that soothed her, mornings spent sketching, afternoons painting in her sunlit studio, evenings walking along the cliffside path where the ocean's roar drowned out the noise of the world. Her art studio was her sanctuary, tucked away in the attic, its walls adorned with unfinished canvases, shelves lined with jars of brushes, and the faint scent of oil paint in the air. From her window, she could see the Pacific stretching endlessly, its waves shifting between calm silver and tempestuous blue. She thought her life was predictable in the best way possible. Until the day Lucas arrived. That morning, her mother, Claire, called with a familiar warmth in her voice. "James's son is flying in from Greece today. We'll be having dinner together. I want you here to welcome him." Isabella had heard his name before, Lucas Carter, but only in passing. In her mind, she pictured someone reserved, perhaps polite to a fault, the kind of man who kept his distance in family gatherings. When she opened the front door later that afternoon, her assumptions fell away. Lucas stood there, tall, with sun-bronzed skin that hinted at years spent under foreign skies. His hair was tousled, the kind that didn't look styled but somehow always fell perfectly. And then there were his eyes, gray, sharp, observant. They didn't just look at her, they seemed to study her, as though every detail was a puzzle piece he intended to place. He smiled faintly. Not the broad, performative kind, but a small, knowing curve of the lips. "Isabella?" he asked, his voice deep but smooth. "Yes," she replied, feeling a strange shift in the air between them. It was nothing more than a greeting, yet it felt like the first step onto unfamiliar ground. Chapter 2, Sparks in the Quiet, expanded. In the days that followed, Lucas settled into the house as if he'd always belonged. He wasn't loud or demanding of attention. Instead, his presence was the kind that you noticed in the spaces between things, the way he seemed to lean slightly closer when she spoke, the way his gaze lingered for a fraction longer than necessary. She learned small fragments about him. That he had spent 2 years in Greece working under a renowned architect. That he preferred walking over driving, even in a city built for cars. That his humor was dry and sharp, slipping into conversation so unexpectedly that she would catch herself smiling after the fact. They often crossed paths in the evenings, when the house had gone quiet. She would find him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, making coffee or reading something on his phone. They spoke about art, architecture, and places they longed to see. He listened. Not the polite, distracted kind of listening most people offered, but the kind that made her feel as if her words were worth holding on to. And slowly, without either of them naming it, the conversations became the highlight of her day. Chapter 3, The Art of Avoidance, expanded. Isabella told herself to be careful. Whatever it was that lingered between them, it was better left untouched. She poured herself into her work, sometimes spending hours layering color onto a single canvas. But Lucas had a way of showing up in her studio without warning, leaning against the doorway with a cup of coffee in hand, watching her work. One afternoon, he stopped in front of a painting, a coastal scene, waves breaking against white cliffs. "You've painted this like you've been there," he said. "I haven't," she admitted. "But I've seen pictures." He stepped closer. "It's almost exactly how I remember Santorini in the early morning, before the tourists arrive, when the air still feels untouched." Something in his voice made her pause. It wasn't just admiration. It was recognition. For a moment, it felt as if her art had reached into his past and pulled out a memory. Chapter 4, Lake Tahoe, expanded. When James suggested a family trip to Lake Tahoe, Isabella hesitated. She told herself it was because she had deadlines for her work, but deep down she knew the truth, distance from Lucas might be easier. Yet, she went. The cabin was perched on the edge of the lake, pine trees swaying gently in the wind. During the day, they hiked the trails and shared meals by the fireplace. At night, the lake reflected the stars in perfect stillness. One evening, after everyone else had gone inside, Isabella stayed by the bonfire. The warmth of the flames was a sharp contrast to the cool night air. She heard footsteps behind her and knew without looking that it was Lucas. They spoke softly, about the future and the uncertainty it held. His voice was calm, yet there was something beneath it, a quiet pull that made her pulse quicken. When their eyes met, the conversation stopped. The moment was silent, but heavy with things unspoken. Chapter 5, The Question, expanded. The shift between them didn't go unnoticed. Claire's eyes flickered between them at dinner, reading the way Lucas's attention sharpened whenever Isabella spoke. Then James asked it. "Is there something going on between you two?" The room fell still. Lucas's gaze moved to Isabella's. "I didn't expect it," he said evenly, "but yes. There's something." The admission was quiet, but it carried weight. And though the uncertainty ahead was real, neither of them looked away. Chapter 6, After the Question. Dinner that night ended quietly, though not without an undercurrent of tension. Claire was the first to break the silence. "It's unconventional," she said carefully, her eyes shifting between them. "But life doesn't always follow the rules we expect. If this is genuine, then it's not my place to stand in the way." James, however, remained quiet for a long moment. His gaze was steady, unreadable. Finally, he said, "I just hope you both know what you're getting into. People will talk. Not everyone will be kind." Lucas nodded. "I understand." Isabella felt a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. The truth was out, but that didn't make the path ahead easier. In fact, it made the stakes higher. Chapter 7, Whispers. The news, of course, didn't stay within the walls of the house. Friends noticed the way Lucas and Isabella moved together, not in grand gestures, but in subtler things, a shared glance across the room, the way they seemed to find each other in a crowd. Some offered quiet support. Others, not so much. One afternoon, Isabella overheard two acquaintances talking at a cafe. "Did you hear about Claire's daughter and her stepbrother?" The other woman lowered her voice. "They're not related, but still. It's strange, isn't it?" Isabella tried to brush it off, but the words lingered. She'd always considered herself immune to gossip, but now she found herself questioning how much weight other people's opinions carried. Chapter 8, The Gallery Invitation. It was Lucas who pulled her back into focus. One evening, as they sat on the back porch watching the sun sink into the horizon, he handed her an envelope. "Open it," he said, his lips curving slightly. Inside was an invitation to an upcoming art exhibition in San Francisco. The gallery was seeking new talent, and Lucas had submitted her portfolio without telling her. "You did this?" she asked, stunned. "I believe in your work," he replied simply. "You've been hiding your talent from the world long enough." It was bold. It was exactly what she needed. Chapter 9, Sophia returns. But life has a way of testing even the strongest resolve. A week before the gallery event, Lucas received a message from someone named Sophia. Isabella didn't know who she was at first. Until Lucas explained she was a colleague from his time in Greece. Sophia arrived in town for what she claimed was a quick professional visit, but her timing felt suspicious. She was striking, confident, and clearly knew Lucas well. At dinner one evening, Isabella caught the way Sophia's hand lingered on Lucas's arm, the way her laughter seemed just a little too personal. Chapter 10, The Confrontation. It was late when Isabella finally asked. They were in the quiet of the living room, the hum of the refrigerator in the background. "If your heart has shifted," she began, her voice low but steady, "if you want her instead of me, just tell me. I'd rather hear the truth than wonder." Lucas crossed the room and took her hands. "Sophia is part of my past," he said firmly. "You are my present, and my future. Don't let her shadow make you doubt that." Something in his tone, grounded, certain, cut through her uncertainty. Chapter 11, The Exhibition. The night of the gallery opening was electric. Isabella's work hung on the walls, each painting lit to reveal every stroke, every layer of color. The room was filled with murmured conversations, clinking glasses, and the faint strains of piano music. Lucas stayed close but didn't hover. His presence was steady, a quiet anchor in the swirl of people and opinions. When one of her pieces sold for a record price, she caught his eye across the room. He didn't need to say a word, the pride in his expression was enough. Chapter 12, The First Real Storm. The days after the exhibition should have been purely joyful, but an unexpected storm hit, literally and figuratively. A sudden weather shift brought heavy rain to the coast. Lucas had been overseeing a construction project and was called out to deal with urgent flooding issues. When he returned hours later, drenched and exhausted, Isabella met him at the door. He looked at her, water streaming down his face, and something passed between them, a reminder that real life didn't pause for romance. They had to navigate both, side by side. Chapter 13, The Doubt. For the first time, Isabella wondered if their connection could withstand everything the world might throw at it. It wasn't about passion anymore, it was about resilience. She began sketching late into the night, her drawings reflecting her uncertainty, unfinished lines, restless strokes. Lucas noticed but didn't press. He gave her space, trusting she'd let him in when she was ready. Chapter 14, The Letter. One afternoon, Isabella found a letter in her studio. It was from Lucas. It wasn't long, just a single page, but the words were careful, deliberate. I don't know where this road leads. But I know I'd rather walk it with you than anyone else. If the world doesn't understand, so be it. We will. She folded the letter and kept it in her desk, knowing she'd read it again and again. Chapter 15, A Turning Point. When the next challenge came, a setback in Lucas's project that threatened to delay everything, they faced it together. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't cinematic. But it was real. And in that, Isabella found something more valuable than the thrill of their early days, trust.